Good evening, YouTube. This is Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. Hope you guys are doing well. This first part of the video here is going to be more of an in case you missed it type of deal. We already know that we have Fiona lurking out there in the Caribbean, and we already know that from the looks of it, Puerto Rico and Hispaniola are in the line of fire here. But the really interesting thing is what some models are showing to happen after the fact. It does seem like that within the last 24 hours, we've started to see a little bit of a trend southward as far as its track, and we've also seen an uptick in its intensity. As of right now, we've even seen an uptick in its intensity. It is a now 60-mile-per-hour storm when originally it was forecasted to be only 45. I mentioned it in yesterday's video that I felt like that was a bit conservative on the intensity given the conditions around here. By the way, the video will be in the top right hand corner. But we're also watching this additional tropical wave behind Fiona. However, this does not look to be any sort of threat to land and will probably be a fish storm. Plus, it has a very slim chance of development, maybe 20% or less within the next 5 days. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the satellite imagery for these two. And over here, we can obviously see Fiona. Fiona's starting to get a little bit of additional convection on that right front quadrant as well. See a little bit forming on the left too. Almost would like to say that potentially this storm is starting to grow in size as well. But I do think that this storm is continuing to intensify, but it's not going to be doing so at like a bombing pace, or bombogenesis or anything like that. But this does look like it's starting to become further organized. Then we look over here towards our other tropical wave, and no surprise here. Can't tell where our central low pressure is. There could be several different points. But somewhere around here is our low pressure, and we're starting to get a little bit of convection almost on all four sides. I think as we move along here, and as this ridge moves out the way, this area here will have a better chance of harboring a growing tropical system, albeit I still think the chances of that actually forming are still pretty slim. So now we're going to get a little bit more of an intricate look at Fiona here. So here is the traditional satellite imagery right here. A little bit more of an up close look. That left side is still looking a little bit unhealthy, but it does look like it's trying to grow. Like, this is still a pretty small storm at the moment, which could allow it to further strengthen, but that also will play an interesting role in what happens next. You can almost see that there's a little bit of wind shear out ahead of it as well. Like, you can see that these clouds at the higher levels moving this way, and you can see some clouds moving this way off to the west. So that could also play a role in its intensity when it makes its expected landfall with the Leeward Islands. Speaking of the Leeward Islands, let's go ahead and look at the forecast cone. No surprises, the northern Leeward Islands are at risk and also have tropical storm warnings. So within the next 24 hours or so, we can expect tropical storm conditions here. And then Puerto Rico now has a tropical storm watch in effect, meaning that tropical storm conditions are possible within the next 48 hours. Now, here's the thing that I don't want to be lost here when it comes to reading this forecast cone. It is just that, a forecast cone. You don't have to be dead center on this to get hit. These storms love to wobble in different directions. They could wobble a little bit further south. In fact, we've been seeing a trend with this kind of making a slight little jog to the south. Not a big one, but just enough. Or sometimes it'll make a little wobble back to the north. I'm kind of thinking this is going to make a push towards the south a little bit. Not a huge one, but this could also affect parts of the Dominican Republic, which will lead to a significant flood threat, and of course, it will bring high winds as well. The reason why I'm concerned, especially about flooding, are those mountains over there. Those valleys are very susceptible to flooding because of those mountains. Alright, so now that we've talked about the path, let's go ahead and talk about the intensity. And this is probably the biggest thing about this storm. This intensity is going to determine a lot of things, because there's a few models that are showing a bunch of interesting scenarios here, and those scenarios are going to be influenced heavily, or I should say those scenarios could happen or may not happen based on how strong this storm gets. So right now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look over here. All right. So here's Fiona right here, somewhere around here. But if we look at the track here, we have quite a few models that take it over the Dominican Republic. But if you remember in another one of my recent Tropical Outlook videos, excuse me, I mentioned that the stronger the storm gets, the more influenced by the upper level winds that storm is, and it tends to be steered out to sea a little bit more, whereas weaker storms usually will go on a more straight and narrow track for a while as it's gathering its strength. So basically what I'm saying here is a much stronger storm may actually spare the U.S. impacts, whereas a weaker storm, especially one that goes over the Dominican Republic, could put areas like Miami, Orlando, and other various cities around Florida, the Keys as well, at risk. Because here's one thing that I also want you to remember is that this area hasn't had too much activity this year in regards to the tropics, and as a result, waters are very warm. We can see that there's not a lot of wind shear, so the speed and strength of this storm is going to determine a lot of things. So if we look at our spaghetti models in regards to intensity, a lot of these models have it pushed out towards, I'd say, max level tropical storm, maybe low end hurricane. But I do see some interesting scenarios where we get a little bit of a push towards either a major hurricane or a slightly stronger category 1, maybe category 2. So nothing's really off the table yet. A lot of things are still uncertain. But this weekend is going to tell us a lot for what lies ahead for Fiona. So we'll take a look at the spaghetti model track. Excuse me. And we can clearly see that if you compare this to yesterday, there's a lot more models that are making closer passes to the US and a lot less time out towards sea. So it's going to be, it could be close. I'll put it that way. We still aren't very sure of what the strength may be should it go through Hispaniola and into that little strait between the Bahamas and Cuba. So let's go to the other half of this video. The other half of this video is a slight risk for tomorrow, and the main threat with this is going to be damaging wind. As you can see here, tornado threat is minimal. Wind threat is highest around western Nebraska, and we have small parts of South Dakota, Wyoming, and Colorado in play. Then we have a marginal hail threat as well, but beyond that, we have marginal risk. If anything changes with those days, I'll let you know. So if we look at the parameters here, there's really not much to go off of, to be honest with you. We look at the Cape values, and this is getting into Friday morning now. They start to build back, but they're a little bit too far out ahead according to this model. Not to mention they're not very high values. We might get a 1500 to 2000, but as far as any other variables like the low level jet or mid level jet being there, it's nothing impressive at all, to be honest with you. I do think that the threat might be a little bit further east than what they're showing right now. We'll have to see what the SBC does to adjust to that. But beyond that, really, I don't see a very active severe weather day. But I do want to remind you and keep this in mind as well for any other times that I show models like this, that these are updated every hour for a reason. Just a small difference in temperature, wind speed, something could make these Cape values go from 1500 to 2000, or they could be higher Cape values in a different area. It can get topsy-turvy real quick. But this is pretty much all I got for the Capes here. Let's just go ahead and take a look at what the radar could look like tomorrow. Here is our upcoming storm system, and it's got some dynamics to it because if you actually watch this roll along here, you can actually see some snow in the highest of elevations in the Rockies. But we're mainly going to be anticipating it probably rolling in about maybe 3-4 o'clock. This is about as far as this model goes here. This is the most recent HRRR. I'm trying to work these models over as best as I can, but I'd say about maybe 7-8 o'clock is when we have peak time for severe weather. Again, like I said, it's most likely going to be a multicellular linear type event. Tornado threats next to zero. Not really much to go off of here. Hopefully I haven't taken too long with this video here. Looks like we're at 12.5 minutes. Keep it at 13. But that's it for you. That's all I got for you guys tonight. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop me a like, leave a comment as well. I'll have a video for you guys tomorrow, most likely a weekend forecast. Maybe we'll cover the tropics a little bit more, especially as things continue to progress with Fiona. But until the next video, this has been Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night.